Welcome to Connect, the monthly series to connect you with your community. In each episode, we speak with experts, innovators, and community members and together explore themes of loneliness, social connections, and healthy aging across Massachusetts. I'm your host, Sandra Harris, the State President for AARP Massachusetts and co-chair of the Task Force to End Loneliness and Build Community. Long before the COVID-19 pandemic, there was an invisible epidemic of loneliness, especially among older adults living alone for whom isolation was just a way of life. The COVID-19 pandemic only made matters worse. Now, many of our neighbors, and perhaps you, are readjusting to the new circumstances. We may no longer be in lockdown, but many still feel lonely. To address this, we at the Massachusetts Task Force to End Loneliness and Build Community and many of our community partners have launched new programs or innovated on existing programs to help residents stay connected in community. What are some examples? And how do we know if what we're doing is helping? To answer these questions, I'm joined by Jean Bushnell, Director of the Billerica Council on Aging. Welcome, Jean, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for having me on the program. I'm delighted to be a part of it.
Jean, before we get started, tell us about the Massachusetts Councils on Aging. What are they and what is their purpose?
So the Mass Council on Aging is more or less a trade organization. Basically, it's a membership organization of the 350 councils on aging in Massachusetts, supporting the life quality about 1.7 million seniors in the Commonwealth, ensuring that they live the best quality of life. But also, equally importantly, they help those of us who are professionals working in the elder care sphere with senior programming. They advocate for us. They do a tremendous amount of training. There is an annual conference. It was not in person due to COVID, but this year in October, we're having it again. So basically, for example, if you're having maybe a difficulty with a board member or something, you can call up and get some coaching on how to work more closely together. There are a lot of best practices shared. There's a great website. So, I'm one of that 350 COAs across the Commonwealth.
Oh, that's wonderful. So that means the whole state is covered with councils on aging.
Except, I think, one community, and I don't remember the name right now.
Oh, okay. Jean, what is your role as the director of the Billerica Council on Aging? And more specifically, how does this loneliness and social isolation impact or intersect with the work that you do?
So as the COA director, you have the responsibility to ensure that all the seniors in your town who are 60 years and older, that you help empower their quality of life. You help them maintain their dignity, their sense of self, their independence, their overall health and happiness. So that's sort of your number one goal. You also work very closely with community partnerships because your programmatic mix and what you offer these seniors and their family caregivers really can be expanded if you have these community partnerships where there are resources and capacity. One of the things you do a lot of is try to change the image of a council on aging from it's a place for old people, all they do there is play bingo. You want to remind folks that it's a place of health and positive aging. It's about connections, it's about relationships, it's about friendships, it's all of those things. And that brings me right back smack on to social isolation and loneliness, because that's sort of part of the fabric of what we do. Seniors in particular are at more risk for social isolation and loneliness because many of them are living alone. They may have lost family members. They suffer from chronic conditions. They may have low vision. All of these things causing them to recede inside, you know, and so the work that you're doing with the task force is so pertinent to helping us do more to help these folks. I think the other important point, just the risk of social isolation, I was told, in terms of its effect on life quality. It's been compared to things like obesity, you know, inactivity, things like that. So again, very, very core to what we do is addressing social isolation and loneliness.
Oh, that's so important. Can you please describe what the social lives of adults were in your community? What did that look like before the pandemic, and how has that changed in the past 2 years?
So let me start by sort of sharing what goes on at the senior center. So in any given day, you may have 150 to 175 seniors come through for a rich mix of programs, exercise, entertainment, etc. Just there's a whole menu of things they can pick from, and they come for those range of activities. However, when COVID arrived in March of 2020, we were closed from March to June, and so there was no place to go to maintain those friendships, to maintain those connections. So that was a major blow, because now we had to reinvent ourselves to do programming from afar. So I would say, you know, it really hit us hard when COVID arrived.
What are some ways that you have tackled the disconnection that many older adults experience? And how has your approach changed since COVID?
I think the first thing we want to do and work hard at doing is creating connections. You want, as a senior center leader, to remove the stigma from going to a senior center. And so we've done a lot of work in sort of reinventing the lobby and the look and feel, because if you don't eradicate this feeling that it's a place for old people, you don't get people coming in. So the first thing is get them in. Once you get them in, you want to have a lot of opportunities for them to connect with other forces, with other friends and folks. And how do we do that? So you do things where all they do is chat and connect. Like you'd have a Friday breakfast where they all come, 40 of them. It's reasonably priced. At one point, we tried to have some programming while they're having their breakfast, and they said, no, Jean, we don't want any programming. All we are here for is to chat, connect, and meet one another. Anything we can do to help them just meet another person. One of the big pieces is affordable transportation, because if they don't drive, they need to get to the center to connect with other people. So make the transportation affordable, and all volunteers get free transportation back and forth, because you want to help that group of seniors to be purposeful in what they're doing. When COVID came, we really had to reinvent ourselves. And I think one of the things sometimes we miss is, what does one have to do with their staff? Because remember, for the longest while, we were the only senior center that was open from July 2020. And my staff is looking at the other senior centers and going, you know, how come they're working from home? How come they're not coming in? So you had to really work hard to keep them loyal to you, and get them going on the care calls, making a lot of care calls out to those people who are isolated. That was big. You had to have a lot of food programs and nutrition programs where they would drive through your parking lot, and while they're, you know, opening the window to collect the food, and we raised money and we worked with the school system to get dry goods and fresh produce, they just wanted to wave to you. They just wanted to say hello. So there were two parts of their health. You were connecting with them, but you were also giving them items. the other two areas that I must mention that was really, really great during COVID is our relationship with our local access TV station. They were phenomenal, and I'm so glad that we're here today in Winchester. These guys bent over backwards to put programs, exercise programs, entertainment, everything that they can do to keep the seniors connected. They had something to go to in the morning, in the afternoon, yoga, stretching, chair aerobics, all of these things. And then we also had some Zoom programming where we taught them how to do Zoom and stuff like that. So, you know, you reinvented, but you did it in a way that taught them how to get into a little bit of technology, but stay connected to you. That was really important to us. You know,
gee, you all are doing so much. That's impressive.
We try.
You know, one of the things that I've learned in working with this task force is the interest of young people and the fact that they really want to be engaged in helping to solve this problem. Are you doing any intergenerational programs?
We actually, a couple of years back, we had a summer program where we would bring together seniors and seniors in high school to sort of go through a couple of weeks where they met and chatted and got to know each other, etc. I'm just now starting conversations with our YMCA. The CEO over there is extremely interested in formulating a relationship with us to share programming. So I'm really looking forward to framing some programs. But right now, we are starting back our Pen Pal program, where with the school system, seniors and folks in school will be writing to each other. Like you, I strongly believe that the sharing of experiences between the young and the younger is really critical to their life quality. And I know, Sandra, you're very interested in this area, and anything that you have to offer me in terms of programs you come to know about in other communities, I want to kind of grab onto it and see how we can work with it in Billerica.
Will do. Jean, what advice would you give to someone listening on how to reach out to a neighbor or someone else they know who is isolated and may need help getting connected?
That's a very important one. So first of all, we have to kind of know who this neighbor is to get help. And often you come to know that they've lost a loved one. You know, and by knowing that, you could write a note or drop off a note outside their door. You can call us at the senior center. Our social worker would try to reach out to them in a care call just to get them connected. But fundamentally, we want to see if the newspaper is piling up outside, if you know, the driveway has not been plowed, and we want to try to offer some assistance to them. Now, of course, they have their pride and they don't really want help, but you have to keep going at it, you know, just by also knowing someone who knows them, you might be able to get through to them that way. It is not easy, Sandra, if somebody chooses not to come out, but some of the things we have done, for example, we've gone to the town and sent a note in the utility bills, you know, letting them know that here we are for you. It takes a village. We're all here for one another. I also am thinking that with your local TV station, we could disguise and create a program that says reaching out, connecting, and bringing on people who can talk about how important it is to connect with others, how important it is to reach out, how you can get to the senior center. So as you've often pointed out, it's not a one-person operation, it's the entire community getting together to help identify ways to make it happen.
How can viewers get plugged into their local council on aging, whether in Billerica or any other community in Massachusetts?
by simply walking in. It's a very, very welcoming place, and it opens, ours opens from 8:30 to 4, Monday to Friday. And one of the things we do with our lobby volunteers is as soon as people walk in, to welcome them and engage them. To become a member, it's all free. We sit down, we chat with you, we ask you what are things you're interested in. We open our newsletter and we show you all the activities. You can simply join the walking group that goes walking every morning at 9 o'clock. But the key is just come in, you know, all you have to do is come in. If you're a little concerned about coming in, you can call our outreach department and let them know you're interested in coming in, and one of them can meet you at the door and sort of shepherd you in if you're a little shy. We've had many people say that I hesitated for too long, and once I came into the senior center, I found a whole new family. I found support. My smile came back. I lost my son, I lost my husband, my smile came back once I came to the senior center.
Oh, that's wonderful. Through our annual summits, reports we've published, our ongoing projects, and the work of our subcommittees, the task force has shared promising practices, programs, and tools to help connect people in their communities. Many of these have been invaluable and are really helping to make a difference in communities. But what about residents we have not yet reached out to, we've not met? Perhaps those who we don't even know where they are or how to find them, who are reluctant to re-engage. Well, what can we as a community do to help them?
And the key word there is reluctant to engage. Here are a couple of ideas. So everybody that I know who's a senior, they go to their PCPs, their primary care physician. So if we could ensure that these offices, they have information on what's going on at the senior center, and also ensure that the staff at the PCP know that you have programming to help them, so that they can encourage them, the physician can encourage them to come to the senior center. We also, we have something called a Mental Health Alliance in Billerica, and as they identify persons of need of support because they're depressed and whatnot, they would call our social worker, who is part of the team, to ensure that all of the resources that are necessary are applied to this person. Police, fire, and EMS are very, very much aware of what's going on in the community, who's lonely, what's going on, who's hoarding, etc. And we have a tremendous relationship with them. So once they are in the homes, you will find that they will send a note immediately to us, of course confidentially, letting us know that this is the situation, this person is lonely, lost. So by sort of leveraging all the powers that be in the community, that's the way to tackle it. I feel, you know, that we have to do it together. And you've always advocated for that common theme of collaboration in solving this, because we cannot solve it alone.
Right. And in fact, it takes a village, right?
Yes.
And
yeah.
coalition and working together, also very, very important. Now let's hear from our field reporter, Kasley, and a special guest. Kasley?
Thank you so much, Sandra. Today, I'm very excited to introduce you all to Myra Glansberg, a community member in Massachusetts whose story we are very excited to share with you all. Thank you, Myra, for joining.
Pleasure.
So tell us a bit about you to get started. How long have you lived in Massachusetts?
Most of my life. I was born in the North Shore, well, in Boston, and then lived in the North Shore in Swampscott, born in 1949. Lived in Swampscott through high school and all, went to college in Boston, and then went to Manhattan, where I worked for an ad agency for a few years. And then my client hired me and moved me out to Los Angeles, where I worked in the marketing department for a few years and had some wonderful travel experiences across the country a lot during that time. and then moved back to Massachusetts. As much as when I lived in California, I swore I'd never leave there, but somehow Massachusetts drew me back. Anyway, 1977, and then we bought a house a couple of years later, and through many job changes over the years and all else, but we've been living in Plymouth. I'm still in the same house. My children were born and raised in this house, going to the Plymouth school system, and my husband died in this house a couple of years ago, and it's been a full circle of life.
It certainly has been. Well, thank you so much, Myra, for sharing that background. So tell us a bit more about your experience kind of during the height of the pandemic.
Well, that was an interesting time for everyone, of course. My husband had been diagnosed with multiple myeloma in 2012, and we, good and bad, on a roller coaster for many years. 2019, things were more bad than good, but we found whatever joy we could whenever we could. But I look at everything in life as pluses and minuses, and the pandemic, of course, has a whole list of minuses, horrible things, so many people. But I always also look for the plus and try to focus on that. And big pluses during the pandemic was that our daughter, who was living in New Jersey, Jersey City, working in Manhattan, her office said, go home and just indefinitely plan on working remotely. So she got in her car that same day and said, well, I'll come for a few weeks and, until this all settles, I'll stay with the folks. Well, she ended up spending pretty much that whole year with us. And it was wonderful.
I love your positive outlook on that experience. Something we hear a lot at the task force is that caregivers in particular can often feel isolated and lonely in that process, especially when their loved one is the one who they're caregiving for. I'm curious, how did you stay connected and resilient during that time? It sounds like you had your daughter there, which was wonderful. What were some of the other ways that you made sure to stay connected?
Just through emails, and then connecting through Zooms to so many things with WGBH and the library and the CAL, the Center for Active Living, aka the Senior Center here in Plymouth, was just outstanding, making phone calls to us every week, and just connecting and offering programs I had been going to CAL physically for some programs starting when I retired in early 2019. Some of them were wonderful, and I had met a lot of good friends through that. There was a great connection every week with many of these people. And we were like, oh my goodness, now because of the pandemic, we've lost that. But Cal got the program on Zoom. And in the first several weeks, it felt really weird doing our mindfulness group. So doing mindfulness and meditation on Zoom just was peculiar at first, but we all got into it. And as the time passed, we could really feel the connection. And you make things what you want to make them. And are you doing something complaining about how it's not like it used to be, or are you doing it saying, oh, well, this is a new adventure. Let's make it a good one.
That's wonderful. I love that attitude. I really appreciate that. And for anyone listening in who wants to, get better at Zoom, get better at email, and really develop those skills that you're describing that were so important for you to stay connected, we did an interview and an episode, I think a few months ago, on exactly this issue, on the digital divide and how people can learn these skills to get better at technology and get more comfortable with it. So I encourage everyone to check that out. It's available on our website at endlonelinessma.com. And so hopefully that can provide some helpful resources for folks. So Myra, as you think about the future and aging in your community where you live, what opportunities are you seeing to stay engaged, and perhaps what challenges are on your mind as well?
Technology, because it's intimidating for a lot of us in my generation. But there's so many people that will help, and you don't have to know it all. Just figure out what you want to do with it. Like for me, it's basically email, word processing, and Zoom. You don't need to know how the computer works. Just find the right people to help you. And they are out there, but you just need to ask. Definitely go to the local senior center. That is just like a no-brainer way to connect with, particularly if you're over 60, but they will take anybody. I mean, I think AARP considers you a senior when you're 50, so there's no age restrictions, programs and all. And the library is a wonderful way to connect with people. Volunteering is a wonderful way to be involved and help people. You feel good when you're helping other people. The hospital might have volunteer opportunities, the local, whatever is in your community. I know in Plymouth we have the Philharmonic, and a lot of people volunteer as ushers there. So there's just numerous ways to be involved. You just kind of put a smile on your face, a positive attitude in your head, and take a step forward and do something. Take a walk downtown and smile at people. Even in the grocery store, walk around with a smile on your face. And it's amazing how many people will connect with you just by smiling. And even if they're just smiling back, it's a connection.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself, Myra. That was beautiful. Well, thank you. I think that's the perfect inspiring note to end on. I really appreciate you sharing your experience and all these suggestions that you had for how people can stay connected in their communities. Thank you, Myra.
And connect with themselves. That's like yourself. Enjoy being with yourself and reach out to others.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Myra. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kasley.
With that, we will send it back over to you, Sandra.
Thank you, Kasley. Jean, before leaving, what is the one piece of advice you would like to share for someone watching today who now recognizes loneliness in their life? What do you suggest they do?
When we started out today, Sandra, I said that there were 350 councils on aging across the Commonwealth. Please find your senior center, which is synonymous with Council on Aging. They're wonderful people there. They really want to embrace you and help you live the best life you can. They want to hug you and help you to get over whatever darkness is in your soul, because that's why we exist, to help you be whole, to help you be healthy, and to give you all the tools you need to be the best person you can be. So I invite everyone listening, if you're 60 and older, please come to your senior center to be rejuvenated, revitalized, and uplift your life quality.
Well, Jean, thank you so much, not just for being with us today, but for all of the fine work you and other directors of councils and agents are doing throughout our Commonwealth. So our heartfelt thanks. Just keep on doing the good work.
Sandra, I would say right back to you, we can't do the work without visionaries and people who really think broadly like yourself. And I'm grateful to be in your company. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you, Jean. And thanks to our viewing audience. We hope you'll join again next month for another episode of Connect. Until then, please reach out to your neighbors who may be living in isolation and visit us at inlonelinessma.com to watch past episodes, to learn more about the task force, and to get involved in your community. Thank you so much.